Oh, yeah, we're back. Three Things with JR. Welcome to the show, everybody. Episode number 53. I am going to jump right into this because this is going to be a long one. I am going to just warn you right now. If you listen to this whole entire episode, you are in it for the long haul, and you will be seriously rewarded for your time and effort if you actually listen to the entire thing. And I know long podcasts, it's tough to get people to listen all the way to the end, but my special guest in this episode is my childhood friend and neighbor, John Worrall. I interviewed him. I did that thing where I call people out of the blue and interview them for the podcast when they don't know that that's what's happening. And I didn't get to a point in this conversation with my good friend John until many, many minutes into the interview when I was like, oh, hey, guess what we're actually doing here? And he was pleasantly surprised and was a complete good sport about it, and only asked me to take one little bit out of the show when he found out it was potentially going to go public. He's like, yeah, remember when I said that thing? Can you take that out? And I did, because I'm a nice guy. Other than that, this episode, this interview with John Worrall is completely unedited. We didn't remove any content all the way to the very end. And you are going to find this John Worrall is one of the most interesting people on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. He's had quite a life. Currently, he is the executive producer of a video game called Dominations, and there will be a link to that in the show notes here on this episode. If you've played Dominations, you are going to hear from the executive producer of such game. And if you've never heard of Dominations and you're into those sorts of things where it's like, I don't know. I was about to pretend like I knew what the video game was about. He describes it later on in the interview, and it's got like history and fun stuff. It's adventure stuff. You can find it from the link in the show notes if you're interested. I'm not much of a video gamer myself. That doesn't make John Worrall any less interesting to me, though, because he has plenty to say about literally any topic you can throw at him. We talked about things we used to do as kids when we played with Legos, living and growing up in Falls Church, Virginia. We talked about him coming out as transgender, and the entire spectrum of human sexuality. We talked about his family and how he's a bit estranged from them right now. A little bit about what's wrong with America. We both grew up in Falls Church, but we had ties to Charlottesville, and so we talk a lot about Charlottesville and the shit going on here these days, as well as stuff that was going on when John Worrall lived here in Charlottesville, John learning how to drive in kind of a bad way, and we both worked, or I still do, at Crutchfield. And I didn't know that until this interview. And until very recently, I found this out about John Worrall. So we have we grew up on the same street, living, two houses down from each other, spent the night at each other's house many, many, many times. And then we graduated from high school and saw each other one time after that when we ran into each other at a outdoor concert called Fridays After 5 here in Charlottesville. Caught up for a few minutes, said our goodbyes, and haven't seen each other since. That was in the mid-1990s. And so we've seen each other. We're friends on Facebook. We communicate in that way, but it's, comments on each other's posts. That's about it. And so it was super fun getting caught up with my good friend, John Worrall. I hope you find him as interesting as I do, because it was a lot of fun to talk to him, and we unwrap a lot of stuff here. I hesitate to do my own three things before playing you this interview with John Worrall, because there are so many things in the interview. He says things that are deep. He talks about what's inspiring him, and he gives us a bunch of stupid stuff to think about. So I'm still going to do it, though. I'm still going to give you my three things. I'm just going to do it kind of quickly, and then we're going to get right into the interview with John, because it's that much fun, and I don't want you to miss it. So here are my three things.
Thing number one.
Comedy. I was doing comedy there for a while, haven't done it much lately, and I just did it Wednesday night last week. So the night after episode number 52 came out. So it's been almost a week since my last comedy gig. Before that, it had been 4 months since my last comedy gig. And for the first time since my first night ever doing comedy, I was nervous. I don't get nervous most of the time. I do feel pressure. I am a little bit antsy about it. I worry a little bit about whether I'll do good, things like that. But I don't usually find myself nervous to get on stage and attempt to do comedy. But I was absolutely nervous this time, and I thought it showed. I was surprised when I talked to people afterwards that nobody else could tell that my voice was quivering and shaking, that my hands were shaking. I had my notebook in my hand, with my jokes, and it was physically, I could see it shaking, but apparently nobody in the crowd could, and then I got some laughs, it was a kind of a tough crowd. It was an outdoor gig, large outdoor gig with like about 30 people in the audience. And it was a great audience because I got them to laugh, and I felt pretty great about that. So once again, it was kind of like starting comedy all over again, where I got enough laughs to make me want to do it more. I got hopefully past the nerves part of it. I've got some booked gigs coming up. I am excited once again to do some comedy. So yeah, thing number one, comedy, nervous, energy, fun, and laughter. Let's make it happen, people. Go out and see live comedy. Go out to the open mic here in Charlottesville Wednesday nights at the Ix Art Park. And I've got some booked shows coming up at Keswick Vineyard. So if you're anywhere in the Charlottesville area, look those things up. You might be able to get some tickets to Keswick, or just show up at the Ix Park Outdoor Open Mic Show on Wednesday nights about 8:30.
Thing number 2.
Saturday Night Live. I will always be a Saturday Night Live fan, even when the show sucks. And it has sucked plenty over the years. I have remained a fan, and I think I will always be a fan. It's been a thing basically my entire life. I don't remember a time without Saturday Night Live. I watched it when I was a small child. My parents might not like you knowing that I was able to watch Saturday Night Live when I was very little, young enough to remember Mr. Bill and what's his face, Eddie Murphy doing Gumby and Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. Dan Aykroyd, Jane Curtin as the Coneheads, Steve Martin hosting many, many times, and then into my formative years when it was Wayne's World and the Church Lady and things like that. The highlight for me is always the cold open, the fake commercial, and weekend update. And if the musical guest is good, certainly then, but most of the time the musical guest kind of sucks. If I'm, I typically sit down and watch the entire episode, even the shitty skits that most people don't watch at all. I watch them. I love Saturday Night Live. I like seeing the process. I like seeing them break the fourth wall when they can't stop laughing. I like seeing the skits that are no good, and then and the skits that are great. And there's always some hidden gems late in the show that you only get the reward if you watch the entire thing. So Saturday Night Live has always been an inspiration for me, and I think it always will be.
Thing number 3.
For dinner tonight, I had this was a night of breakfast for dinner for me, and I recently went to one of those sort of country stores that's run by like Amish people. And, you know, they're closed on Sundays. They've got like lots of different spices and baking stuff and jams and jellies and sauces. And it's like a Yoder's Market type of a thing in Madison County. It's one of those types of places. And I scored a small brick of Scrapple. Not the Scrapple you just get at any grocery store. This seemed more authentic Scrapple. And I had that for dinner tonight, and I loved it. And I was reminded that some people don't even know what Scrapple is. And so I thought I would explain it for you, because to me, it's one of the best meats available. And you can't see it, but I was putting up air quotes when I said the word meats, because just like the name implies, there's scraps of meat in there. But let's break that down a little bit. So, you know, it's usually pork, but it could be beef or a combination, probably a combination. And it's you know how when they get some a side of beef or a cow into the butcher shop or a pig into the butcher shop, they're gonna cut it into all of the prime cuts, right? The steaks, the ribs, the pork shoulders, all that stuff, right? They're gonna cut those out. They're gonna wrap those. They're gonna sell those to the public as, just prime cuts of pork or beef. And when they're done with that, they've got other stuff left over. They're going to take some of the pig and they're going to grind it up into sausage and bratwursts and things like that. They're going to take the feet. They're going to put pig's feet in jars. They're going to make pork rinds out of some of the skin. They're going to take some leftover stuff from that. They're going to make hot dogs out of it. And then when they're done with the hot dogs, then they take the scraps left over from that and they make Spam out of that. And when they're done with Spam, they actually still have scraps left over, and those become Vienna sausages. Those little tiny sausages in this tiny little can. That's what's left over after making Spam. I might have that backwards. It might go the other way around. Don't quote me on this. This is not a news report about how Scrapple goes. This is kind of a bit, in case you didn't pick up on that. But when they're done with the prime cuts and the sausage and the pig's feet and the pork rinds and the hot dogs and the Spam and the Vienna sausages, and they're about ready to go home for the night, and they realize, oh shit, we got to sweep the floor. They sweep the floor and they put it all into everything. They take it in the dustpan and they dump the dustpan into a little brick maker, and it just forms a brick of Scrapple, and it's gray. Right, so it's not a nice fresh pink cut of meat. It's mixed in with all the stuff that was on the floor. So it's the color of a cement floor of a basement where they make pork products, and it's got all of the stuff that was on the floor mixed with whatever scraps of meat was left over after they made all the other stuff. And they brick that up. They probably throw a couple spices in there, wrap it in plastic, and sell it. And I've always thought it's a good idea to save the best for last, and that's exactly what Scrapple is. It is the best. I'll take that. I'll eat a thing of Scrapple. Give me Scrapple instead of a steak. Give me Scrapple instead of pork barbecue or brisket or really good sausage. I mean, it's all that stuff's great. I love it. But I'll take Scrapple first because of whatever else is in there. And people will say, oh, you know what's in there? It's like dirt and rat hairs and rat feces and this and that. And I'm like, well, apparently that's what it takes to make the best meat on the planet. Scrapple. Give it a try if you haven't tried it already. Fry it up. Cut it into about like a little like 3/8 of an inch thick pieces. Fry it up in a frying pan so that the first side it gets nice and crispy. Gently flip it over. It can be hard to work with. Sometimes it falls apart on you, but if you can flip it over, let the other side fry until it's crispy. Take it off. So you want it kind of like a dark reddish brown, crisp on the outside of it. And then when you've got that and the inside is still kind of mushy, that's the perfectly cooked piece of Scrapple. So I hesitate to call it medium rare because, again, there's no pink involved in any way, shape, or form. It's all different shades of gray and brown. But that's what makes it great. Anyway, there you go. Scrapple. We're going to hit some music. We're going to do a quick ad break, and we're going to be back with an interview with the most interesting man in the world, John Worrall. Be right back.
Wake up, wake up, wake up. There's no time for play. Get up, get up, get up. It's a brand new day.
Hey now.
Oh, damn.
How you doing, man?
Hey. Adam, I'm great. How you doing?
I am fantastic.
That is terrific. Look at you. You got the whole setup there. You're doing podcasts and you doing any radio and stuff like that. What are you into? You've got quite the setup there. I like it.
I am. So some of this is work gear. Some of this is personal gear. It's kind of combined here at my workstation at home.
Sure.
And this mic, though, is mine. I bought it. And so is this stand and all of that. It's the interface in the computer that belong to work. And
yes.
I use it for the podcast that I record for work, Crutchfield, the podcast. And I figured with the pandemic killing all of my extracurricular activities, I'd always been interested in radio, and podcast is the new radio. So
Absolutely.
I started my own personal podcast.
Well, you've got quite the voice for it now that you're all, practiced.
That's right. Yeah. I've been working on this voice for years, and it's finally ready.
It's paid off. Now you've been working with you did a show with Mark.
Mark Connor.
Yes, Mark Connor.
Yep. We worked at the same radio station for a few years. It's how I got my current job at Crutchfield, because he was a part-timer and we would cross over on our shifts. On Saturday, he'd be doing the afternoon shift. I'd be doing the evening shift. And so we would be on the air for like a couple minutes, sort of transferring the DJ power from him to me. And and then we'd chit chat afterwards and before and all that. And I just got to know him, and I guess he thought I was a stand-up guy. So he said, my day job is I work at Crutchfield. So you should apply there because you're a good dude and they're good people. So, and I've been at Crutchfield for 25 years, and it's, I owe basically all of the success I've had in my career and life, because Mark Connor thought I'd be a good match for Crutchfield. And, so I owe it to him. And
I imagine you are a good. Now, Mark Connor and I, we went through training together at Crutchfield.
So what did you do? You went. I had no. How did I not know this? This is crazy.
The last time I saw you, we were in Charlottesville together. I think the last time I saw you must have been at like a Fridays after 5 or something like that.
That's exactly how I remember it. I was like, whoa, hold on. I don't know who recognized who first, but there you were. You were living in Charlottesville. I had no idea. I was living just north of town out in the country. And yeah, it was at Fridays after 5, and we were hanging out, and you were working in video games. I remember you told me you were proud of the fact that you could tell your mom that, yes, you can make a living in video games.
You can. My mother, she said, you better do your homework because nobody's going to pay you to play video games. And yet, now, were you living at the? I remember when we were kids, we went down. Your father was building a property. Is that the same location? I know it was out, down like Greene County, something like that.
You have a good memory, sir. Yes, Greene County, Stanardsville. That's how I relocated to Charlottesville. Was I would go down on the weekends. That's where I met my future wife, who is now my ex-wife.
Congratulations, twice.
That's the right answer for that.
I met my future wife, ex-wife, in Charlottesville as well.
Oh, no kidding! I didn't know that.
I did. She was a UVA student. I was down there. My grandfather lived in Charlottesville, and I went down to stay with him because basically I was just untamed. My grandfather one time told my father, he's not housebroken. I'm not sure how to take that today, but he wasn't far off. Boy, I was just drinking all the time. I was a train wreck. And in Charlottesville, I worked for a little bit at Odo's Bagels.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was good. And I worked a little bit at Crutchfield, and I was taking training out at the training center, call center out there.
Yep.
And Mark Connor gave me a ride. I didn't have a car, so Mark was going to training, and after I, sort of took the bus and hitchhiked out to training once or twice, and Mark said, I can give you a ride. So sure, and I met Mark, and he introduced me to the radio crews, Max in the Morning, and these guys, and I hung out with them for a little while and did some, we played paintball and all, a great bunch of guys. I mean, just a fantastic group, and the number of tie-overs, I met Ian Gillan was working out there at the time.
Yeah.
So we hung out and God, just watching that guy play guitar was a
incredible
thing of beauty. And it was all good. Now the problem was all of those guys were going to be working in the call center, but I had to go work at the retail store. Yeah. So when I went to the retail store, well, I didn't. None of the people I went through training were with me out at the retail store, and I didn't get to see them, and so it was a different. I had to get dressed,
Yeah.
and I didn't last long in the retail store. It just wasn't my thing. Whereas I imagine if I had been in the call center, I might still be there today. I really, those was a good group of guys. So yeah, I kept showing up late there because I didn't have a car and it was out 29.
Yeah.
And it was rough getting there every day. And my boss said, well, you have to be on time. And I'm like, well, I don't have a car. And he's like, well, you can choose to live your life better or whatever. And I ended up getting fired. So I wasn't in a position to choose to live my life better at that point.
Right.
So then I found there was a game studio, Kesmai, was right there downtown, right across the street. It was the old jail, and it was across the street from Court Square Tavern. If you know Court Square.
Yeah.
And I was walking there for an interview, and my grandfather was walking with me, so because he wanted to see. He used to work in that same building back in like 1967. He just got out of the Army, and he was working with a guy named Drury Brown, and they were working on civil rights issues. And so Grandpa got an office there at the jail, right across from the courthouse, and that was where he would work to try to fix the prison system so it wasn't predominantly black people all the time, and the black didn't get a stiffer sentence and all of this stuff. He ended up, him and Grandma ended up with a house down like Cherry Hill, like in the middle of where all the crack was going down and everything.
Yep.
They loved him. They thought he was terrific. So at any rate, he walked me there so that he could see, am I gonna, was I applying at the same building he used to work in? And sure enough, I was. And while we were out in the parking lot, comes this kind of half crippled guy, and he recognizes my grandfather. But a lot of people recognize my grandfather in Charlottesville. So, and they get to talking, and that guy's name was Kelton Flynn. So the job I was applying for was customer service rep at Kesmai. And what I didn't know was all the people I was going to be interviewing with are looking out the window, watching me shake hands and have a conversation with the guy who owns the company. So when I went in to apply for my entry-level minimum wage, they were like, yes, we'll give you the job. We don't know how you know him, but...
if he likes you, you're in. So.
Yeah, so I ended up there, and that was and I've been in the industry ever since, man. They bought EA bought Kesmai in 1999, and in 2002 they laid off everybody except 10 of us. They made the 10 of us move to Austin, Texas, if we wanted to keep our job.
Oh.
So I moved to Austin, and that was it, man. I went from there to California, from California to Massachusetts, all over the place. I was in Canada for a while. I was in Thailand for a while. And now I'm in Pennsylvania now. Yeah.
You were in England for a while, not too long ago,
I was
right?
in England for a while. That's where my current wife number 2, is English. And so she's from there. And then I got laid off in Canada, and I went to Thailand. And I spent about 6 months in Thailand. But before I did, somebody dropped me a note on Facebook at about 2 o'clock in the morning that said, "Tickets go on sale in half an hour. Who's with me?" And I said, "Tickets to what?" And they sent me a link, and it was tickets to the Monty Python at the O2 Arena in London.
Oh my gosh.
And I'd just been laid off, and they gave me a good severance check, and I was like, yeah, I'll buy tickets to Monty Python. When the hell am I going to see Monty Python again?
Right.
So I bought the tickets, and then I asked Lizzie, who I knew from playing fencing online. I said, "Hey, you're in England, right?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you want to come see Monty Python with me?" And she said, "Okay." And so I said, "Cool, here's when the show is." I bought 2 tickets. And she said, "Actually, I'm going to be in South Africa at that time." And I said, "Oh, well, I'll, So then I asked my dad if he could swing a trip to England, and so my father and I went. But Liz said, "Listen, as long as you're going to England, why don't you just come out like a week earlier, and you could stay with me, and I'll show you around England," or whatever the hell. So I stayed with her for a week, and by the end of that week, we were an item. And and she went to Africa, and I didn't have any plan. And her mother said to me, she said, "I know that you're supposed to go back to America with your father, but if you wanted to stay in England, you could stay with me until Lizzie gets back from Africa." And I said, "Well, I'll think about it." And I thought, well, why not? So I stayed in England, and then I was in England for a while. I was down to like $10, man. Like I had to borrow money for a pack of cigarettes. Which I've given up smoking since, thank God. But yeah, I was down to dead broke as nothing in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And then I landed a job in California. They offered to interview me, so I of course I'll go interview. So they flew me from England to California. The problem was they couldn't. If they'd flown me back to England, I wouldn't have got in because my visa had expired. Like my tourist visa had expired, and I didn't have like any money to show that I could leave England again. So I had to leave my guitar in England. I convinced them to fly me to Canada after the interview because I had somebody would let me stay on their couch. So I did. I brought I had a backpack and a laptop, and no home, and I stayed for 2 weeks on this woman's couch in Canada while she was ironically in California. And during those 2 weeks, they offered me the job because I got the. It was weird. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have anything, man. Like they tried to get me a rental car while I was down in California. I was like, yeah, no, you have to just send somebody to pick me up. I don't. When I got my apartment, I had to get one that was within walking distance of the office. I was like, what am I now? 47. So I guess I was 40 years old, dead ass broke, homeless. I never had to live on the street, but I didn't have a home.
Right.
I was bumming from place to place, and they gave me a job, and I got this apartment. And when I put my backpack down in the apartment, it had been with me from Canada to Thailand to England, briefly Pennsylvania with my father, and back to England, and then to California, up to Canada. And when I got the apartment, I put my bag down, and the strap broke. You're done. You just stay. So yeah, all my furniture I got off of Craigslist, and I just slowly built my life back up. I eventually bought a car for $1,000 off of a buddy of mine. It lasted a year and broke down, but by then I could get another car, and I have my, I put it all back together. Now I'm executive producer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. This is a recent development, huh?
Dude, what a crazy ride it's been. Yeah. they laid off, like my studio is a 1-game studio, but they ran up a second game last year, but it did terrible. And it's not my fault because I was out with cancer the whole time that they were making that. So it wasn't, dude, I had colon cancer, and I was on chemo. I come back 3 months later. They lay off a third of the staff, including my boss and the other producer that was more senior than I was. And then all right, Worrall, you're taking over. Like, okay, here we go. So apparently I did a good enough job because they're making me. They've made me now. They've made me an executive producer. So that's as far as producing video games go, that's the top of the chain, man. The only place to go from here is to run companies. I don't know that I want to do that. I like making games.
So, yeah, what does the executive producer of a video game do? Delegate?
I delegate. That's actually what I'm at right now. I mean, I've spent the last damn near 30 years now doing. And what's hard right now is I have to let the other people do that shit, right? Mm-hmm. And then my job now is something else. I kind of set up like the whole framework for how everything's supposed to operate, and then everybody else makes sure that it's doing what I want it to do.
Let's talk about that for a second because there's two reasons for this phone call.
Oh, really?
Yes. One, the first reason I started doing this about a month ago with my podcast is I started calling people out of the blue without any warning. And
very nice.
Recording the conversation and
yes,
not without anybody's permission. Along the way, we made sure they knew what was happening. And
sort of like you're telling me now, Ab.
Well, yeah, we just got started like right away at 100 miles an hour. I was like, I'm not going to stop him. He is giving me everything.
I'll talk forever if you don't.
But I did it, and it's been awesome, sort of reconnecting with people that I haven't spoken to either because of the pandemic or just maybe that's not why you and I have spoken. It's been way longer than that.
It's just life happened, didn't it? Man?
Yeah, and we've had. You and I have had interesting arguments and debates and discussions on Facebook with things like involving my dad sometimes. That's been fun. Like we've had arguments about, theism and atheism and all of that stuff. And the funnest part about that was that, my dad was my dad was in Africa sometimes for part of that. You were in England. I had another friend, another John. He was in Nicaragua, and I was here in Virginia. Nice. And then my cousin John, he would chime in from Florida. I mean, this was a global conversation discussing the bigger issues in life, and it was a whole lot of fun just watching it happen and being a part of that. And you were a huge part of that because you had plenty to say.
I always have plenty to say, Adam. That's one aspect of me that's not changed since we were little.
That's true. That's true.
So, how is Eldon? How's your dad?
Man, he's doing better now. So he did come down with the COVID right around the middle of November, right before Thanksgiving, and it got so bad that we, my sister and I, thought we were having our last conversation with him over the phone Thanksgiving morning. It had gotten that bad that her and I hopped in my car and drove to Iowa in hopes of getting there before he passed. While we were driving there, he called us to say, hey, I'm feeling a little better, just so you know, but he still wasn't great. And because he was so close to being on death's door, they allowed us into the hospital, into the COVID unit, into his room to spend an hour with him, my sister and I together. And we got to see Dad, hang out with him. But it was pretty clear that he wasn't about to die anymore. And
no, he turned a corner.
He totally did while we were driving to Iowa. And so we stayed there for about a week. We weren't able to see him anymore after that. So we just came home. I went back about a month later, right around New Year's, when he was home from the hospital, still needed a lot of help. I spent a week or so there with him, and he's been on the mend ever since. So he's 90% back. He's still kind of weak, and having some other minor side effects left over from it. But for the most part, recovered from a pretty bad case of the COVID.
Well, listen, I'm so glad to hear that. Now, speaking of your atheist, would attribute this to the driving to the Iowa usually would be some sort of prayer, and then that would have inspired the divine to intervene, and that's the downside of then all of the effort that you made to go out to Iowa would have been taken away, and all of the credit would go into somebody else.
I like to think that him knowing that my sister and I were on our way out there and that he was going to see us and all of that probably gave him some energy, some inspiration, some desire.
You need
to
something
live.
to look forward to.
Right.
That's right.
And I certainly hate to take away from all the effort of all of the nurses and doctors at that hospital doing everything they could to keep him alive. I think they had a lot to do with it. So
No. They could have had a cup of tea because it was prayer. Yeah. It was prayer. And everybody just stands and watches the effects.
Right.
A lot of tea at hospitals.
That's it. You got it. So, other than that, Dad he went to Africa, was a missionary there for a while. He came back, he lived with me for a couple of years here in Virginia, and then moved back home to Iowa almost 3 years ago now. And so he's kind of come full circle in life, living in the same small town he grew up in. He's got two of his sisters there, and just kind of leading a simple retired guy's life in small town Iowa.
I'm glad to hear that. That seems to me, remembering him when we were young, I think that's what he would like the most. Is a quiet, simple life on his terms, where he feels comfortable.
Yep. Living well within his means, doesn't pay much in rent. To live in Emmitsburg, Iowa is very cheap. So,
does he have a Pac-Man machine?
He does not. That was always my mom's kind of deal. Dad wasn't a video game guy, but my mom was. So we had a stand-up arcade for real, like bought it at an arcade Pac-Man machine.
Boy, you did.
That was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That was.
Yeah, it was. You could spend hours just racking up points and trying to get up into the keys, right? Because it was like, all the fruits and the pretzels and the bananas, and then you
you get the keys.
The keys, and it was a matter of how many keys could you rack up before you died. We had something like 14 or 17 keys was our record.
Now, that wasn't the most fun that I had at your house, though.
I know what this is going to be. Please let it be the same thing.
Yeah. The ping pong table that you had in your room, we used to build Lego cars on top of that.
Yes.
And we put the Monkees album on.
Yep.
And play the Monkees at top volume, and we'd be singing, I'm going to buy me a dog because I need a friend now. And we would smash our Lego car. So the idea was you put the little Lego man on a seat, and then that seat had to go onto some sort of vehicle that had wheels. It could have as many wheels as you wanted, but it had to have some wheels. And then we would build as strong a Lego fortress around that little Lego man as you could. And then you would stand at the one end, and I would stand at the other end of the ping pong table. The net would come off, and it was smash those cars together at the most violent velocity we could possibly muster in our 5th and 6th grade old bodies.
Yeah.
Whip those suckers across, and then wham, and then whoever's driver and seat stayed in the car the longest would win.
Yeah.
Do I have the rules correct?
100% correct. That's exactly how I remember it. And we would just 1, 2, 3, and just push them as hard as we could into each other. And if we had done our jobs right, our vehicles, armored as they were with Legos, they would last 7, 8, 9 head-on collisions with each other's vehicles until finally
go a few rounds.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd lose a wheel, you'd lose the top, you'd lose parts all over the place. Finally, to the point where somebody's driver guy would fall out, and it would just, he wouldn't stay in. So then we would build another one, and we would just
build it back better.
Rinse and repeat over and over. We could do that for hours. It was so much
amazing.
Fun.
Was that it would lose? Yeah, the car would lose a roof. It would lose the wheels. It would lose. What's amazing to me, Adam, looking back, is that nobody lost an eye.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody had a 2-length Lego brick lodged up into their sinus cavity.
Yeah.
Everybody survived.
No pinched fingers. No nothing. It was just pure,
no pinched fingers. Yeah.
Pure fun.
It was absolute fun. Oh, what a great time! That was so much fun. I went back to the neighborhood maybe 2 years ago. A friend of mine got locked up in Springfield or somewhere Reston, and I went down to visit her at the women's jail out there. Glad that I'm not running with that crowd anymore.
Yeah.
I took my wife and daughter to go by Greenwich Street to see the old hood. It's insane now. There's about 4 times too many people in Falls Church.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't for that many people, and it's like it took me 5 minutes to cross on Spring Street where the bike trail goes, just because it was a nice day and it was an endless flow of humanity walking the bike trail. I couldn't get across to get from Park Street up toward our house. But I went there, and I drove down Greenwich Street, and there were families have taken now to setting up like picnic tables or small sort of outdoor patio sets just in front of their house to sit and chat while the kids still play in the street the way that we did, but now the families have moved out of the houses and they now sit in the street with the children. So everybody was looking at me sideways when I pulled up and parked the car and got out, and they're like, "Who's this?" Interloper. And why? And is he going to take our children? It was. And Christopher Dietz lives in your old house. Yeah. Which I imagine your folks must have been renting that from the Dietzes then.
We were, we had plans to rent that pretty much until for as long as they would allow us to be there. But we had thought we were going to be there longer. I think we were in that house for about 5 years, and then they decided they were moving back. So we found a place on Lincoln Avenue. But the Dietzes owned it, and we rented it, and it's easily my favorite place that I lived growing up. Like, that house was awesome.
Yeah, we had a good time in that house. It had that big, huge rec room downstairs. So you don't find that so much unless you build it yourself,
Yeah. Now, that was Bob Dietz's addition to the back of that house. From the front of that house, you would think it was this tiny little brick house. And then you realize you go around back or you go through the house and you're like, hold on, this house just keeps going.
It goes and goes. Even the upstairs would get kind of labyrinthy up there.
Yep.
But it does. From the front, it looked like EJ and Jimmy Ripple's house.
Right.
And then when you go inside, it carries on.
Greenwich Street in Falls Church in the 80s was it was idyllic for sure. Playing hide and seek all over the street at night, kickball, dodgeball in the empty lot next to my house.
And Edie's yard. That's right. We used to, now, were you around for the rugby soccer years?
No, I was not.
Rugby soccer was a game we used to play in Aunt Edie's lot before they built on it. We would the object of the game was sort of I don't know if you can still say smear the queer. I don't know what they call that anymore.
Oh, Mrs. Tatum would not allow us to say smear the queer.
Can't call it smear the queer.
That's against the rules.
There was another game we played that you can't say the name of as well. There's I don't know what murder the guy with the ball.
Yeah,
I suppose is what you call it now, but it doesn't rhyme.
Right.
Murder the herder or something could you could I don't know, Dr. Seuss on that. It's entirely possible. It's right there with Yertle the turtle, right?
There you go.
Murder.
Murder the herder.
Murder the herder.
It sounds like something you'd say when you're drunk. Hey, murder the herder.
Doesn't really roll off the tongue real well.
No.
Murder the herder.
Murder the herder.
Murder her. But we used to play that, but you couldn't use your hands to hold the ball. You see, you had to dribble it, soccer ball, with your feet.
Okay.
And the other children would attempt to kill you and take the ball for themselves. And so as a result, I was a pretty good soccer player when I was a kid. And the reason why I was a pretty good soccer player was because I was used to trying to maintain possession of the ball while fighting multiple enemies at the same time.
Yeah.
Grab this guy and throw him into this guy and try to get off of this person, and this guy's trying to trip you, so and then you have to keep somehow possession of the soccer ball with you throughout all of this violence and it's like sort of gladiatorial combat. And excellent. We had excellent games as children.
Yeah, I would not have done well at that game at all. Soccer skills was something I did not possess. I played soccer for a few years on the Crutchfield soccer team after I had been employed there for a year or so. And I had went from having a fairly physical job and being pretty well in shape to sitting down at a desk at a contact center all day. And given my love of food and my newly sedentary lifestyle, I blimped out to like 300 pounds. And so then I took up soccer and I started losing that weight fast because you can't play soccer that way.
You have to move all the time. The problem is, like, I'm still really good at soccer for about 3 minutes. And then after 3 minutes, it's over, man.
Yeah.
Put me in goal.
Yeah,
play goalie.
That's kind of where I ended up. I tore my ACL playing soccer, and so I ended up in the goal, and then I just kind of quit because it was bad for my knees.
Did the weight come back on after the ACL blew?
The weight has come back on and left multiple times since then.
I'm right with you, homie. It's I'm currently I'm 6'2", about 255. And it goes up, and now I'm told I just got this morning the vaccine shot.
Oh, nice! Congratulations.
Thank you. I got it because I am the ideal weight were I 6'11". So not being 6'11", I'm really obese, which in Pennsylvania gets you a straight ticket to the front of the line. The other thing that you could be that would get you to the front of the line in Pennsylvania is a smoker. So I thought about just stopping and picking up a pack of Marlboros on the way. Hey, COVID, and then they let me in. I would be taking up smoking for my health in that case. It was to improve my health. I have started smoking.
Right. I found out that I was in phase 1B to get the vaccine when my girlfriend started going through the Virginia Department of Health website and filling out the questionnaire. And she's like, "Did you know that you qualify for phase 1B because you're overweight and a smoker?" I'm like, "Wait, what? I can go get the vaccine?"
Sure.
So I absolutely signed up and got the vaccine last week.
The cream rises to the top now.
That's right.
So you front of the line, sir.
Yes.
As a reward for your excellent behavior.
That's right.
Yeah. Please, front of the line. We have beer waiting for you.
Yeah. Beer and a donut. Help yourself. Smoking section's over there.
Please. It's hard to smoke with a mask.
True. It's not impossible, though. My sister has a mask with a little flap on it that you pull the flap up and Velcro's open so that you can put a cigarette in. So
how's Aubrey?
She's great. She's in Orlando and living the dream down there. She is a server at a really nice restaurant. I think it's called Spice, if I'm not mistaken. I could have that wrong. I can't remember which restaurant name it is, but it's really nice. It's right near the Amway Center where the Orlando Magic plays, and when there's events, when there's large events in Orlando, she ends up seeing lots of very rich people for, the teams will go there. When they have CPAC in Orlando, she gets to see all of the people that go to that.
Fun.
And everything in between. So she makes pretty good money and is living exactly the life she wants to be living down there and just doing her own thing. My mom just moved to Florida. She's in Sarasota now. So my sister is now just about 2 hours from my mom. And so they go and visit each other all the time. So they love that.
That's terrific. I like your mom. I've always liked your mom.
And she's always liked you. She has no idea that you and I are talking right now, but she is the first person to listen to every episode of my podcast. And when she sees that it's you and me talking, she's going to be so excited.
Hello, Beth. And thank you for everything. And I hope you're doing well in Florida.
Hey, how are your brothers doing?
I don't know.
You don't talk to your brothers?
Well, they don't talk to me, and I don't talk to them. So I came out as transgender quite a while ago.
I remember.
I went through a hellacious, turbulent time, understanding that side of myself, which is, growing up in Virginia in the 70s and 80s, you don't have an opportunity to explore any portion of your being that is not 100% straight.
Being transgender was an exotic thing you saw in movies and TV shows that happened in other places like New York and California, not in Falls Church, Virginia. I just didn't see it.
And those people got their asses beaten. And Virginia, you couldn't as a boy growing up in Virginia at that time, you couldn't admit that you liked flowers, or you'd get your ass handed to you. There wasn't much you could do or say to express any feminine side of your personality. And so I had a fairly strong feminine side of my personality, as it turns out, that I had buried way down deep, and I kept it there, and I didn't ever give myself the freedom to explore that side of myself. I kept throughout my life searching for ways to make it go away. And so, I joined the Army when I was 19. I'm a pacifist. I have no business joining the Army.
Wait, what?
Right. But I did, because it would theoretically give your life structure and meaning and make a man out of you. And I wanted to be, I wanted to come out with a clear sense of who I was, and I didn't, shockingly. I got into old cars. I had an MG that I worked on for a while. I got into drinking and womanizing in a heavy way. I got a job working in fantasy sports. I make video games. I went as far as I could to the guy side of life. I started a pool team. We used to play at Rapture. It was I went heavy that way, but the feeling that I was the feeling that I wasn't being true to myself never went away. And in fact, when it did bubbled up, it bubbled up strong. And I spent quite a bit of time in therapy and learning about what transgender people were and who they were and what it was and what it meant. And then I went and started presenting female for a while. And that was a big deal in Vancouver, where I was living at the time. I started getting invited to speak at conferences and all of this stuff. The EA producer comes out as transgendered and tell us all about that experience and the whole. And my wife took my 3 children on a trip to Singapore to see her father, who was dying. And then instead of coming home, I got sent divorce papers from the Singaporean court. And it turned out that 2 of my brothers knew that she was going to do that.
What?
And did not tell me.
Man.
Yeah, that caused a slight family kerfuffle. And I was not pleased. And things were said that are hard to unsay. and it's now been 10 years. Actually, this year it'll be 10 years since all that went down. My brothers did not reach out to me when I was going through chemotherapy. I nearly died twice during the cancer episode. It was close. I had sepsis and pneumonia, and it turns out I'm allergic to one of the chemo drugs. You don't want that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I had several family members fly over from England to spend time with me to help Lizzie after I went through surgeries, and just to hang out, to come to chemo with me. My brothers never acknowledged that I had cancer, never spoke to me. None of them did. So from what I understand, they're doing fairly well. But I've made it clear on a few occasions that I'm willing to to apologize for things that I said. But at this point, they still get together at holidays, and so they got together. I was going through chemotherapy. It's Christmas time. I call my dad to see how he's doing. He is 90 minutes away from my house at my brother's house, where my whole family is, including one of my brothers flew up from North Carolina to be there. 90 minutes away. They don't tell me about it. They don't come see me. They don't, nothing. I just wasn't included. So I don't, I don't speak to them. I don't know if I ever will. My children don't have a relationship with them, so I don't really have, other than my father, I don't really have a reason to pursue, patching things up with them. I've put a good life together for myself outside of that.
Yeah.
And while I wish it was different, it'd be wonderful to have, I come from a big family. It'd be great to be part of that Christmas, but they've made it pretty clear where I stand, and rather than fighting that, I think it's easier to come to terms with it and say, you know what, I've got a fantastic wife who loves me. I've got 4 beautiful children, 3 of whom are in Singapore, but they won't be forever. And my wife's family adores me. I get along with all of them real well. So, I think that's fine for me. I think that there are times when I learned this a lot. When I was presenting trans in Vancouver. Sometimes you need to make the family that you deserve, and the family that you need at that moment. And I'm okay with that. That's reinventing myself, something I do pretty damn well, as it turns out.
You've got some practice for sure. So I knew most of that, what you just told me. I didn't realize the rift it had caused with you and your brothers and your family. I didn't know that side of it. But following you on Facebook, seeing articles that were written about you, I remember learning really a modern understanding of the spectrum that I did not understand until I had read a very long thing that you had written. I think I saw it on Facebook that I remember. I was like, oh, okay, this all makes sense to me now. Like, I get it's not just black and white. There are so many in between, so many gray areas, so many that what it literally did. It was one of the many things that helped me sort of gain a new understanding of people in general. Right? Not just trans and where you fall on that spectrum, but accepting and not being judgmental of others for choices that I wouldn't make for myself. Like, I've gotten to the point where, man, just be you. Don't hurt other people, and I'm good, and that's
don't hurt other people.
I mean, that's kind of it for me. And reading your what you had written about being on the spectrum and what the spectrum is and all of that was a big part of me sort of learning that later in life.
I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you for telling me that, because sometimes you write these things, and it's usually just because it's on your mind, right? And it's or something's happened and you need to share. I've always tried to be an open person. I was open about gender expression and that journey. I was open about cancer. People commented they've learned from the things I explained about chemo and cancer and what that process is like, and I try to learn from other people as well. But I think that as a society over the years and over the generations, we've been taught that to have fear is weakness, and that we can't show weakness, and we can't show vulnerability, and we can't, and we can't, right? You have to be X, Y, Z, and that if you're anything else, you're going to be, outcast or shunned, and in too much of our society, that's still the case. But I got to experience, being part of the trans community in Vancouver. I got to experience a completely different element of society that I never would have been privy to. I got into politics of it up there, and working to help make healthcare change. I helped organize and lead marches. I gave speeches. I gave one. You talking about the spectrum. I got invited. I got invited to speak at a gay. What was it, like a gay travel convention? It was weird. It was out on Victoria Island, and it was all these just normal travel companies, but they were trying to they were having this convention to talk about how are they addressing specifically the gay community, which was interesting. They invited me. I'm not gay. I don't consider myself gay, but I do consider myself genderqueer. I know I'm not a straight heterosexual person, but I'm also not a gay person. The gay community, I love the gay community. I'm not a part of the gay community, but I'm a big fan. And that was kind of what I was talking about. They flew me over on a helicopter to this island, which was awesome, because I'd never been on a helicopter. And it was just as cool as I'd ever imagined it would be. It was hella cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hella cool.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to, but once it was there, I had to repeat. So it was hella cool. And so when I was talking, and this is a thing about public, a lot of people are afraid of public speaking. I don't like public speaking if I don't know what I'm talking about. So my rule when people ask me, "Hey, do you want to do this panel or this convention?" If I can do it with zero preparation, fine. I'm totally down for it. But if I have to study and take notes, I'm not the person who should be talking about it. You want somebody who knows what they're talking about it. So I understand some people need, like a guide to keep them on track. I'm not ever on track. There's no track that can contain me. So I got to talking about like an abacus. You're familiar with the abacus, the Chinese mathematic calculators. You have to. They're like, it's so much easier if you use this. But I think that the thing is that you have to be a super genius to understand how it works.
And it's
the super genius is what gets you the answer. It's not the abacus. You already have it. You just did this. But it was like that, right? So we have these expectations. So if you think of all the slider things, and on this side, on the left is the girls, and on the right is boys. And it's okay, like sports. We move that over to the boys. Likes pretty things. Okay, girl. Likes drinking beer. Boy. And we have these as soon as they find out what sex you are, before you're even born, blue clothes. Boy. Trucks. Boy. Spaceships. Dolls and shit. Girl. And the fact of the matter is, nobody is like that. Nobody is 100%. I love trucks, and I hate flowers. Flowers are horrible. I hate the color pink passionately. Why? Because I'm male. I love the color blue. Thank God for blue. I want everything blue. If it's not blue, that makes me queer, and then all hell breaks loose, right? So, so everybody is somewhere on this spectrum, and the thing is, like, I'll say it, I'm not. I love the feeling of women's clothes feel wonderful on your body when it's the right weather. I'll be dead honest with you. There's some shit you don't want to wear this stuff in the summertime sometimes because it's just the clothes aren't built to allow your body to breathe in a certain way. But other kinds of clothes are built to allow your body to breathe in the summertime, and those clothes feel fantastic in the summertime. Whereas as a guy, you're wearing a pair of jeans and you're wearing a shirt, and if it's cold, wear a shirt on top of that. And this is the extent to which we're allowed to express ourselves, unless we're gorgeous and a musician, at which point you can wear whatever the hell you please. But if you're not a model, you're expected to just wear pants and a shirt and maybe a second shirt, and a jacket if you want. And if you're cool or bald, a hat. You can get a hat is okay if you are cool or bald. I'm neither cool nor bald. I can't wear a hat. I look like an idiot in a hat because there's hair coming out.
You have a beautiful head of hair.
I do have it. I thank you. And which was even more beautiful when it was long and flowing. I had great hair in that phase, but the feeling of wearing different kinds of clothes that make sense for different is women have so many more options when it comes to that guys just for some reason society never evolved to a point, or if it did, it unevolved, it devolved to a point where we're now so limited in this stock selection of here's what you can wear. Like, you can't even really wear a suit anymore unless you have an excuse to, or like someone died, or you're a banker. Bankers wear suits. But if I just wore a suit to work, I'd look like an idiot. It doesn't make any sense. But when you're presenting female, you wear all kinds of things. So for me, that what do I like to wear slider is kind of in the middle. I got good at makeup. Makeup was fun. Shaving enough to wear makeup was not fun. If I do this again, I'm keeping the beard, adding the makeup. Who knows?
Why not?
I'll do what I want. But I won't live in rural Pennsylvania when I do it. That is a horrible mistake. But if you live in downtown Vancouver, nobody cares, right? Like New York, you get away with this stuff because who cares? Nobody cares in New York. They fucking care in southern Pennsylvania, boy. They care a lot. And that's what's unfortunate, because people born out here in Trump country, some of them are gay, some of them are trans, lots of them are feeling bottled into I have to look an exact certain way. People dress up to go to Home Depot here. When they dress, but you have to wear the right kind of clothes to go to Home. If you wear the wrong clothes to Home Depot, then you're probably queer, and they'll come after you. They're going to beat you up, right, for him. But they're also not going to say hi to you. If you went to Home Depot wearing sandals and loose khaki beach pants, they're just not going to. They won't acknowledge you. You have to wear a trucker cap and flannel and jeans or whatever. And work boots preferably, so you look the part. But looking the part, very, very important in this part of the country.
Yeah.
At some point, not looking the part becomes a safety issue, which is horribly unfortunate. And yet here we are.
Where in Pennsylvania? Like, what town are you in?
Are you going to hunt me down? I'll wear the boots.
Seriously, the main reason I'm asking, I talked to Chris Iraka, who was in my grade in Falls Church, growing up with us.
I remember that name.
Yep. He and my friend Darren Lomas, Chris Iraka, and me, we were kind of a trilogy. You know,
Darren, I remember very well.
Yeah. So Chris Iraka is living in Du Bois, Pennsylvania, and he has 3 kids. He's a stay-at-home dad. He raises his kids and he raises chickens. And of the 3 of us, the one that I would have pictured living rurally in Pennsylvania, raising kids and chickens, it was not good. Wouldn't have been Chris Iraka for sure. So he's
it would have been you were Darren,
right? For sure. But
I don't know where Du Bois is, but I would not be surprised that they call it Du Bois.
Yes.
It's clearly Du Bois.
It's Du Bois. Yeah.
But they'll call it Du Bois. You know, you remember Dr. Hamlin, Jack Hamlin? He was a Spanish teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Hamlin. I call him Dr. Hamlin because he died of HIV, AIDS. But before he died, he busted his ass and got his doctorate dissertation and got his doctorate before he passed away, which I will always respect. But I remember him saying, you know, what's wrong with America? He spent very little time teaching Spanish, a lot of time teaching what was wrong with American society.
Yeah, he had a lot to say, yes.
I used to cut classes. He would let me, if I was cutting English class, he'd just let me come hang out while he was grading papers, and we'd just talk about religions and societies and what was different about Portugal and shit like this, because he was just a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
But he said what's wrong with America is that the Spanish have a word for yellow, which is amarillo. It's a beautiful word, amarillo. If you're in certain parts of Spain, amarillo. Because the J would be pronounced harder in some accents. Amarillo. And what happens, the Americans take it, and there's a beautiful city, Amarillo, and they call it Amarillo. Amarillo.
Yeah.
Amarillo, by God, Texas. Amarillo. So I'm not surprised that Du Bois is Du Bois. And he's got 3 of Du Bois. So good.
3 Du Bois.
Good for Chris. Yeah. I'm in New Freedom, Pennsylvania. Not to be confused with Freedom, Pennsylvania, which is a whole nother city. This one's apparently newer.
It's newer, right?
Yeah.
Hasn't been around quite as long as Freedom.
This is the upgrade. Where are you from? Freedom? Oh, no. New Freedom. New Freedom. Yeah. Don't get me confused with people in Freedom. I'm about 3 miles north of the Maryland state line, which is the Mason-Dixon line. Mm-hmm. And I am surrounded by Trump flags and more than one Confederate flag, which you kind of wish this side was the North. We were on the north side, see, but I figured out
the magic line.
Of the magic line, but I figured out why there are so many Confederate flags here, and the reason was, so 3 miles south of here was the state dividing line, and this is all rural country, this is all farmers, and the problem was, Pennsylvania didn't allow slaves, which means that 3 miles south of here, you had people with a free labor force that was killing it and making tons of money. And up here, you couldn't use black people as free labor. And so they were very angry about that because it was hurting their ability to compete with their 3 miles away neighbors when it came to selling corn. And so everybody around these parts apparently thought that the Confederacy was definitely the way to go, because look how much better they're doing.
Yeah,
because they're all about the humanity.
Right. So this almost comes full circle with Charlottesville, right? With your dad or your grandfather and the work he did in Charlottesville and the issues we're still having in Charlottesville. It's kind of crazy, and it sounds I do stand-up comedy sometimes, not much recently, but one of my bits describes Charlottesville. Like when I go to other places and I tell them I'm from Charlottesville, I used to have to explain where Charlottesville is and
not anymore.
What's going on in Charlottesville. Now, thanks to recent events, everybody knows where Charlottesville is and what made it famous, apparently. But I tell them
what bothers. Yeah. No, you go ahead.
What I tell people is that Charlottesville is not what you've seen on the news, because most of those people were not from Charlottesville. They came here from elsewhere.
Yes.
But what really is happening in Charlottesville is Charlottesville's like a Whole Foods surrounded by Food Lions, which I associate Food Lions with like the redneck grocery store. But it's actually true in the Charlottesville area is that there's a Whole Foods right in the middle. And there's Food Lions in all the surrounding counties.
All around, that's right.
You could also say Whole Foods surrounded by the people of Walmart. Like, it's that. And
it is, yeah. You have one Target and lots of Walmarts, except the Target is really more of a Lord & Taylor. Target's quite a nice, it's Target. It is
Target, yeah.
That's exactly what it made me so mad because during that time, I used to live right on the downtown mall. I used to live above Miller's, in an apartment right there, and when you see you move away from there, and then suddenly Charlottesville is in the news, and then everybody starts associating Charlottesville like it's the home of the Klan,
right.
And it was like, guys, these people came from everywhere.
Yeah.
And the reason they came was because Charlottesville had decided to take down the statue.
Yes.
Like, you know what? This statue, not cool. We're not about that. So the Klan comes in droves, and suddenly Charlottesville's Klan capital of the world. And such a shame because it had such an interesting history of integration. Charlottesville is a very unique kind of city in that way. I remember going to a hotel one time and feeling horribly uncomfortable because they had a black man who was a doorman, and he was wearing these white gloves, and he would open the door for me and stare at the ground. Yes, sir. Welcome, sir. And I just felt like, this isn't cool. You should be able to look me in the eye.
Yeah.
How you doing, man? I don't want to be treated like the plantation owner returned. That is not a trip that I'm into. I don't want to feel that way. But the whole thing was set up to make me feel like Southern charm was about, people being very differential to me because I was white. And it was so cringy. I really didn't like that. The other thing there's so much that I loved about Charlottesville. What I did not love about Charlottesville was the massive influx of white children that came down to go to UVA and who just acted as though the whole town was there for their amusement. I'm sure this still happens. It was
100% still happens. A few years ago, when I divorced my wife, I needed money to pay her bills and mine for a while there. I had a vehicle that was nice enough to drive for Uber, and Uber had just got going in Charlottesville. This was the early days of Uber, and I was within the first 6 months of Uber being a thing in Charlottesville. I was driving. And your job as an Uber driver, if you're not just parked by the airport, which is one way to go, you're downtown. And so my time spent doing Uber was in the evenings and weekends. So I was carrying undergrads and grad students to whichever bar they wanted to go to, back to whatever restaurant was open late afterwards, and just being totally eyes open, exposed to that life, that very privileged, mostly white life.
Mostly white, very privileged, no respect, no regard.
None.
No. Waffle House. Waffle House was open, wasn't it?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That was they shut it down at 2 a.m. I'm the Waffle House man. I was off the Waffle. But respectfully, but granted, to be honest, back in those days, I was not a good decision maker. Everybody was driving drunk back then, and I'm awfully glad that hopefully that has stopped to some extent. A buddy of mine had just bought a Mercedes. He was like a director at our company, and he bought a Mercedes. It took us out on. We'd go on drinking somewhere. The next thing you know, I'm in the passenger seat. My buddy's in the back of his Mercedes, and we're going down Rio Road at like way too fast for Rio Road, which is, as far as I'm concerned, 7 miles an hour is too fast for Rio Road.
Yeah.
And man, he came in and clipped a curb and busted his front axle, and then the car's going all. I thought we were gone. But that was, back then. It really was just about, like, somebody would ask you, hey, are you sure you're okay to drive? And that was the extent of it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I said he's all right, so off he goes.
He must be okay.
Must be fine.
He was able to say one word clearly in a question I asked him, and yeah, he's fine.
Or he grunted it in the appropriate.
Close enough.
Yeah. No, that's I would. That's like the last place in the world I would want to be an Uber driver. Is just to have those kids. Did anybody actually hit you with a drink while you were driving?
Nobody did that, and nobody barfed in my vehicle. Couple times we got close. The worst. The closest we ever got to that was not UVA students. It was middle-aged white dudes picking them up from Keswick Country Club and driving them out to their houses, going down 29 at 9:30 at night. These guys were wasted. And I look in my side mirror and I realize that some guy's opened the back window and is leaning out of my vehicle, barfing along the side of my car.
Fantastic.
I was like, I was so happy you did that. I washed it off and went right back to work after I dropped him off.
Now, was Keswick Country Club, was that road 250?
Yep.
250?
Yep.
250? Past like Zion Crossroads.
That's Keswick out there. You got it.
So that's where I was born in Martha Jefferson Hospital.
Okay.
And
both of my kids were born in Martha Jefferson Hospital.
Now it's a fine choice. Executive producers, both of them. Born Martha Jefferson Hospital. On record, largest baby in the incubator at that time.
Huh.
But my first home was Keswick Farm, where my grandfather had Keswick Farm. I can't afford to look at Keswick Farm today. But at the time he had bought it, he bought it in 1966, and it was just a rundown kind of place. He got it fixed up, but we lived in what had been the slave quarters in the back of Keswick Farm. There was no. My father likes to tell a story. There was no heating or air conditioning in the slave quarters. He just had a wood burning stove, but that was in the main room. And then there was a bedroom in the back, and the bedroom didn't get any of the heat from the bedroom. He said, I used to go to sleep next to a glass of water. I'd wake up next to a brick of ice, and I said, is that like what happened to the water, or is that commentary on my mother? Ta-da! So yeah. That was where. So Grandpa taught me how to drive. I was 11 years old, and he'd take the car across the street. We'd go to the Keswick Country Club, which at the time was shut down. It wasn't a functioning golf course or anything at that time. But it had all these roads that would go through what was the golf course, and I was 11, and he just in the wheel of the car, and we'd drive around that golf course, and he'd fall asleep, and I damn near put us in a water hazard at one point. And then at one point, I was 13 when he taught me how to drive stick. Same place, and there was a church out that way, and there was a funeral was happening outside the church, and so Grandpa said, "Now you need to slow down, be very respectful. You don't rev the engine or anything like this." And I said, "Okay." And so I tried to slow down, but it was my first time driving stick. So I stalled it. So I stalled the car out in front of this funeral, and he's trying to, okay, don't panic, stop the car. So I stopped it. And he said, "Okay, now put your foot on the clutch, put it in first gear, and turn the key, give it a little bit of gas." And then, all right, get your foot off the clutch. The whole funeral turned to watch me.
Oh my gosh!
I think I'm just sticking with him. I'm peeling rubber and revving the engine, and making the car bounce, kind of,
And you're 11 years old at this point.
I was 13 when he taught me to drive stick. So at 13 years old, I was embarrassed. I felt terrible. More embarrassed that everybody's staring at me that I don't know how to drive.
Right.
You want to be cool when you're 13. I'm well past that stage now. I've given up. There's no more cool. That's done.
So we've been talking for over an hour, and we haven't even done the thing that I make people do when I interview them, surprise interview them for my podcast.
Yes. Hit me. What do you got?
My podcast is called Three Things with JR. JR is my nickname. It's my stage name. It's my work name, whatever.
I want to know, you're trying to get to the three things, that I'm not going to stop you, but at some point I need to know where JR came from.
Oh, I'll tell you. I'll be glad to tell you. When I started at Crutchfield, being in a contact center and being a commissioned sales advisor, you don't want customers to talk to the other Adam, right? When they're meant to talk to you. And I don't want to talk to the other Adam's customers. I want him to get I want the commission from my sales. I want people to remember my name, to call back, to ask for me, to get transferred, whatever. And having two Adams is just not conducive to that. So we don't allow people to have two of the same name in the same department.
And why did you choose JR? Where did that come?
So the advice we were given on choosing a phone name was choose something that's easy to say, easy to spell, has some sort of pop culture reference that you can use to help customers remember your name. And so literally the first thing I thought of when they told us those three things was JR. Like JR from Dallas was my thought. My parents used to watch Dallas. I would watch the Dukes of Hazzard. They would watch Dallas right afterwards. Who shot JR? JR. Easy to spell.
Who shot JR?
Easy to spell. Easy to say.
Perfect.
And there's always a pop JR, like the guy from Dallas. I said that thousands of times.
JR, like the guy from Dallas.
Yep.
Good. All right. JR, hit me with your three things.
So
man.
Three things is basically, this started off as a Facebook thing for me years ago, and now it's the basis of my podcast. And so I typically come up with them on my own, but when I have a guest, I ask the guest to come up with them. So thing number one.
Yes.
And now I almost hesitate to do this to you because of how much we've already gone deep in this call. But thing number one is just something deep thought. It doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. It can just be some sort of deep thought or a thing a thought you have thought, something you've thought recently or is on your mind, is meaningful. It might be meaningful to others. Just something like that, a deep thought.
It should be a deep thought, right? You don't want if banana bread goes moldy, then the banana went bad twice, right? That's not what you're looking for.
So that's thing three. Thing three is tell me something stupid, and you've already you got that one. Yeah,
I like to go out of order. Here's something that I think about. I've just had to hire somebody to replace the person who replaced me when I replaced whoever. So I hired down the bottom of the chain. And I told this woman, her name's Jackie. She's fantastic. She was our customer support specialist. Now she is an associate producer. We're all very proud of her. And she asked me what makes a good producer. And the answer, I go into my job, and I don't even really care what my job is, nor do I often know what it is. But whatever my job is, I go into it with the attitude that what I want to do is make sure that when the people that work with me wake up in the morning, that their first thought isn't, fuck my life, I have to go to work again. What in the hell am I doing with myself? I want them, I'm not trying to think like I can make it so that they're thrilled about their job and that everything's wonderful. I just want it to not be such a soul-sucking, miserable fucking experience that they question their very being and their purpose. And I think that's a pretty good way to approach life. Just trying to make it so that the people around you don't hate everything.
That you're absolutely right about that being a great approach to life. I think it's a big part of why you are an executive producer now, because if that's your goal every day, I think you're probably going to have some success as an executive producer. So,
well, thank you. I think I'm an executive producer because it's been 30 years and I just haven't left the industry yet, and eventually it's going to be my turn.
Yeah, there you go. Well, at least you'll go out on top.
Hell yeah.
So that killed it for thing number one.
Thing number one.
Thing number two, tell me something that's inspiring you. It could be, when I usually do this, it's some sort of music, art, a band, a song, a book, a movie, a TV show, a podcast, anything art. What is something specific that is inspiring you right now?
It's very hard not to go to Jimmy Page whenever I get a musical question. Anything that even brushes against music, I turn immediately to Jimmy Page and the work that he's done. And I think right now my life is very work focused. Right, I'm 47. I'm in right into the thrust of my prime earning years. I just got a big promotion. Things are very I work from home, so I work from the moment I wake up until the moment I'm called by an old friend to do a surprise podcast. I approach a lot of things. I think that Jimmy Page, not the greatest technical guitar player. People put him in the top X number of guitars lists. I don't really think of him as being a great guitar player or a great guitarist. I think of Jimmy Page as being a great explorer. I feel like he draws from. I got in an argument or an internet fight with somebody about this the other day. Page would draw from classical music. Page would draw from folk music, bluegrass music. Obviously, the blues. He didn't really draw from heavy metal. He kind of created it. But he drew Celtic music, Arab music, and Indian. He brought everything together. And the funny thing, what I got into a fight about on the internet, was that people were saying that his collaboration with Diddy was bullshit because rap isn't music.
Oh, gosh.
You're perfectly fine, and this is on a Jimmy Page fan page, right? Like a Facebook we all love Jimmy Page group.
Yeah.
And they're like, and everybody was like, yeah, that was garbage. Diddy ruined Kashmir. And I'm thinking, who doesn't think that Diddy ruined Kashmir? Your idol and mine, Jimmy Page, right? So he explored a genre of music, but you don't like this genre, and therefore the whole collaboration was crap, and Diddy's an idiot, and in some ways he's an idiot. But you read the interviews with Page, he found the guy, he thought the guy was a visionary. And that, to me, Page's willingness to try, well, let's try doing something different over here. Let's try, it's almost like a chef, right? Let's try adding in some of this flavor. Let's try, you know what, I'm going to borrow some of the stuff, like a technique they use in Scotland. I'm going to borrow this, I'm going to borrow that. And he brought it all together. Now, I do think the man could have done a better job of attributing some of his work during the Zeppelin years.
Yeah.
I think it was, he wasn't the only one that did this, but I think that the case could be made that Zeppelin pretty egregiously abused the, we all borrow from each other thing.
Right.
I said them probably more than others failed to attribute. They've done their best to make amends since they got caught out with it, I suppose. But in terms of trying to create new sounds out of old things and not being afraid to try different things, that inspires me in my work life. As a producer, I'm all about process. I'm very big into process. I want to find a process to make everything go faster, smoother. I want everybody to know what they're doing and why. And so for me to borrow from different traditions that have been used in other, I've learned a lot from call centers. I've learned a lot, from lots of experience. And in that way, Adam, I am Jimmy Page.
Wow.
Well,
That was incredible.
And because I'm Jimmy Page, I inspire myself.
There you go. Have you seen it's kind of a documentary. It's called It Might Get Loud.
Yeah, with Jack White and the Edge.
Yes, and Jimmy Page.
And Jimmy Page.
Yes. Pretty great. That was.
I loved it.
Yeah.
The pinnacle of that film for me was there was a scene when Jimmy Page was listening to. And now, of course, it's totally going to escape me. It was down, 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 down. It had no lyrics, and I can't remember the name of the guy who did it. I've watched documentaries on the guy who did it just because I wanted to get. But the thing was, Page is sitting in his own personal library, which is just walls of albums,
mm-hmm.
but very tastefully done. Right? It's not like. The Kemp Mill records. It was very, very beautiful, and he had this wonderful record player, and he put it on, and you could just see his face just lit up with joy listening to this song, which I now have to quickly. It might get loud. What song is Jimmy listening? Rumble. Rumble is the name of the song by Link Ray.
Okay.
Link Ray, W-R-A-Y is how you spell the end of that. He passed away.
Link Ray and the Rayman.
Link Ray, and the song is Rumble, and it is totally worth a listen. But when he is playing it in his library, you can just see his face light up because it's like he's listening to it. And this is something that you love music. I love music. Anybody who loves music geeks out on this periodically. You'll hear something and you'll just be like, "Oh my God!" And you rewind it and you want to play it again. And the first thing you want is to find somebody that you can talk to about this and share this experience. And he's like, "Do you hear how it gets like the tremolo gets more as the song goes on? It starts waving more and more, and just the utter, he loves this,
yeah.
Right? And so that's something like I remember the first time I heard Ants Marching by Dave Matthews, and I heard the live version where Carter Beauford's just going bananas on the drums, and I was like, oh my God! I had to call my brother Peter, who I was still talking to at the time, because Dave was popular, right? So this was a while ago.
Yeah.
And I know in Charlottesville, Dave will always be popular. Yeah. But I had to call Peter because Peter played the drums when we were in high school. And I was like, dude, you have to listen to this. And I just put the phone like next to the radio. I think I heard on the radio, right? So I just put the phone next to the radio so that Peter could hear the drums that I was listening to because it was insane. And to have that moment. And so, I watched, and it might get loud, Jimmy Page has that experience when he's listening to Rumble by Link Ray.
Then that makes Rumble by Link Ray and the Raymond a must listen to, just to see what makes Jimmy Page feel that way.
Just to see what makes him feel that way, right? So the next thing you know, you're listening. You've got Link Ray on Spotify, and you go for 3 hours just listening to his stuff, right? What did Jimmy get out of this? I need to know.
I'm looking at it now on Spotify, and it's fans of Link Ray and the Raymond also like Dick Dale and his Deltones, the Centurions. I'm about to listen to some surf rock here for the rest of my evening. So
we're gonna go back in time a little bit.
Yes, it's awesome.
Even further back, Adam, than you and I go.
Right? Wait, yeah, big time.
Yeah, we're getting old, man. Like, soon there's gonna be like a time when it's like, the distance you and I go back will be we'll be that old at some point where, people will be talking about, Prince in those terms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. Thing number 3 is, and you've already done this several times, during this call, but I'm gonna ask you for one more. Just tell me something stupid. That's thing number 3.
Something stupid. My daughter. I have a 3-year-old daughter. All right. So first of all, I'm 47. I have 3 boys who are now, I think, like 18, 16, 15.
Wait,
and I have
your 3 boys are that old already?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have a 3-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
So, and my wife's pregnant.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So this is what's stupid. So I did the math on it. I'm gonna be 112 when this one graduates. But my daughter today was looking at some sort of cartoon. We when you and I were kids, you already said this earlier. We watched the A-Team, and we watched MacGyver and shit like this, right? And we watched WWF before it was E,
right?
And there were like 4 channels, and so you kind of, we all watched the same thing because that was what was on, and my daughter has like 6 different services that provide programming on demand at all times. And even though we've got the Disney and we have Netflix and we have Amazon Prime and we and we just got another one, I think the CBS one. I don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's got different shows on it, and so my wife thought it was a good idea. So she's watching one of these crap garbage shows that are teaching kids God knows what these days. Mostly they teach the kids about whining, is what it seems to be. So she's watching this, and it was summertime, and then it instantly became wintertime, and it snowed on the trees. And my daughter said, "Daddy, the snow has come to melt the trees." Which I don't know how much you know about snow. Factually inaccurate at best.
Totally. She's completely wrong about this.
She's totally wrong. Snow does not remotely melt trees. It does completely the opposite.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty stupid. She's 3, sure. But you should, even at 3, you should know that snow is cold. We're in Pennsylvania. It snowed a lot.
Yeah, it's not like she hasn't seen snow yet.
Not one tree melted all winter. all winter.
That's fantastic.
There you go.
You told me before yesterday when we were planning out this call, before you knew what this call was completely going to be, that you don't like to stay up super late anymore. We are past your bedtime. I'm not going to keep you much longer. And I'm going to totally 100% give you the power at this time to tell me, is this call that we've just had, is this just you and me, or is this something that can be the podcast? Because literally you can tell me, let's just make this about you and me catching up. And I will be like, no problem. This never has to see the light of day. No. But if you tell me that you're cool with whatever we've said here tonight being on a podcast, then I think it would be incredibly interesting for people to listen to.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Adam. You can use this. I'll tell you, it's been a blast catching up with you. I liked you when we were children. I like you possibly even more now. Maybe. No, you could use this, and when everybody's vaccinated, we've got to find a way at some point to get a beer and say hello. If you drink.
I do now. I didn't for a long time. I do now. That's a whole nother. We could spend another hour talking about that.
Another episode, yeah.
No, yeah. I am 100% going to take you up on that offer. And now that we're only about 4 or 5 weeks away from both of us having both shots in 14 days, and we can potentially do something like that.
And I happen to be within a couple states distance at the moment.
Yeah. I have a motorcycle and I like to ride it, and riding it to Pennsylvania, I've done that a couple times. So that might be a thing. I might ride up there.
Would be beautiful.
I could come see you. I could go see my friend Chris Iraca in Du Bois.
You could see Chris Iraca in Du Bois.
Yep. And
no, that sounds good.
I would absolutely love to do that, because I also I've thought of you as a friend my entire life, even though we've seen each other once since high school. And I had no idea just how much we have in common with the way we think, with the way we see the world. And this was, I hesitate to say eye-opening, but it was kind of eye-opening, how much you and I have in common. It's been lovely getting to know you again, Adam. And because it's been a minute since we smashed some Legos together. Yeah.
You never know. God knows. I stroll through Facebook time to time, and you see how some of these guys turned out. You never know. Somehow. When I turned out similar and compatible in a way that I'm currently very much appreciating.
Do you want to plug your game that you're executive producer of, or your company?
My God,
or both?
yes. Hold on.
Here we go.
Dominations. I can't even.
Oh man!
Dominations is the name of the game. It's a free-to-play. What happens is you start off in the Stone Age. You work your way up through the ages. A lot of games do that. Where we differ is that we sprinkle an awful lot of very authentic history into the game. So you get to play as one of several nations. You will be able to unlock various generals and figures of history. Harriet Tubman's in there. Cleopatra's in there. Genghis Khan is in there. So it's kind of along that way. You can get it on iOS or Android. Please do, and rate us with as many stars as you're allowed to, because we need that.
Yeah.
Come check it out. 6th anniversary. We have a big 6th anniversary event starting, I think, in about 3 days here, early April.
Nice. And Domination is the name of the game.
Dominations in the plural.
Dominations.
Dominations with a capital N. I don't spell it wrong, because I don't know what app you're going to get.
Yeah, that's on you if you get the wrong one.
You spell it wrong. It's not my fault, man. We're okay.
So just so you know, this episode will be airing not this week, not next week, but the week after.
I think we'll still have the 6th anniversary.
I was going to say,
okay.
I'm just letting you know when it'll be out. I'll tag you in the post on Facebook. You'll know it's happening. And I am really looking forward to people hearing this because if it's half as entertaining for them as this was for me hanging out with you, it'll be great. So
I really enjoyed it, man. Listen, thanks for surprising me with this and for and for having me on. I've really enjoyed it, Adam.
Dude, John, let's not wait so long to get caught up again, and hopefully I'll be riding up to Pennsylvania sometime this year.
Should not be another 30 years
before we happen upon each other in the town we didn't know we both lived in.
Adam, what the hell are you doing here?
Oh my goodness. Are you still here? You're still listening to this show? Kudos to you. You deserve a gold star. You deserve a cookie, a bozo button with a chest to pin it on, everything. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end of the show. And if you did, you probably did find John Worrall just as interesting as I do. And I do plan to see him sometime in the near future. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thanks again for listening. 3 Things with JR is produced, edited, sound designed, all of those things by yours truly, JR. I do have some help, though. I can't do this completely by myself. Consulting sound engineer Gary Hawthorne is a big part of why this show sounds so good. And he also wrote the theme music, and it's the band Big is the music you're hearing on this show. So thank you to Gary Hawthorne for helping make this show awesome. And I know that he, if of all you listeners out there, he is the one I know for sure is still listening right now. Check you later, Gary. See you all later. See you next week. I love you all. Have a great night.
To brand